Hello everyone. This week's topic and teaching is about the power of present timing yourself and present aging yourself. Can you believe it's actually an ancient metaphysical technique that has been passed down for thousands of years? And it's such a simple technique, but hardly anybody here in the West really knows about it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. My name is Nancy Rebecca. I am a registered nurse, but I'm also a clairvoyant, psychic, healer, teacher. I've been studying the health of the human energy field for over 25 years, and so I bring that wealth of knowledge to your teachings. So what kinds of things can trigger us? If you just think about it, what kinds of things can trigger you to be at a present time, to not be your actual age? So let's just think about age for a moment. Let's say you have a birthday coming up and you have had many birthdays, and either you've had nice birthdays that were absolutely fantastic and you just don't think any other birthday can measure up to that, or maybe you didn't have very nice birthday celebrations growing up, and so you have kind of negative feelings about it. So birthdays can trigger you, holidays could trigger you. Oh my gosh, Christmas is enormous in people being triggered. I mean, how often have you said, or maybe you heard somebody else say, my Christmases weren't very good. We never really had enough money. Or, my family drank a lot on the holidays and would always end up fighting. So whatever the reason is, we can get quite triggered and our energy can go in the past, and it really interferes with your ability to have a nice holiday, have a nice birthday. So that's one of the reasons why you can get triggered out of date. Another reason is old trauma, old childhood memories, old childhood experiences, or maybe at work, experiences with, maybe you've had bosses or managers in the past that took advantage of you, and so you're starting a new job and you keep getting kind of triggered about an experience that you had with an old boss. I mean, there's a million different reasons that can kind of knock you off center and knock you out of present time, present age. So in my blog, I talk about just a couple of stories, a couple of examples about how powerful this particular technique is. So I will leave it, if you're watching this video, then you've had an opportunity, hopefully, to read the blog. But if a client comes in to see me and they say that they suffer from depression, maybe mild depression, severe depression, what that tells me right away is that this person's energy's in the past. If you have a thought about the past, and we've all done it. I remember there was this man that I was dating when I was a teenager, and he used to say repeatedly, if I had not gotten that shoulder that shoulder injury, he said I would have been an Olympic wrestler. And so he would talk about this all the time. If that hadn't happened, this is where I would be. If my parents had not, if they'd had enough money, I would have been able to go to college. If my dad didn't drink, or if my parents didn't have affairs, then I would be able to commit in a relationship. So we hear those kinds of things all the time. We hear ourselves say it all the time as well. Or emotionally, you can get emotionally triggered, and I talk about you're having an argument with someone, and then you just kind of flip out and you start screaming and yelling and throwing things like a 2-year-old. It's pretty likely you have been flipped back into the age of 2. And here you are now, you're 64 years old, and you're handling this conversation or argument like a 2-year-old. So sometimes, and you're crying hysterically, and just reminding yourself of how old you are helps bring you fully into the full maturity of all those years of life experience that you have to bring to the discussion. So for, again, with depression, feeling low, feeling fatigued, unmotivated, those can be pretty good indicators that most of your energy's in the past. Now for me, my tendency, used to call myself the future tripper. I like to think a lot. I like to dream. I like to vision. I like to imagine, come up with creative ideas. And it would be, like in nursing school. Let's say when I was in nursing school and I'm thinking about 2 years down the way when I finish nursing school, what is it going to feel like to be a nurse? How often are you thinking you want to move somewhere else and you move into the future to maybe feel like, oh, what's it going to feel like for me living in California or North Carolina or Florida or Illinois? You can move, literally your energy, your spirit moves there so that you can feel into that. So I know for me personally, I was always moving into the future. So I did have a lot of fear because my essence, my soul, my spirit is not here in my body in this present moment. It's in the future. And so then my body's having a lot of anxiety, nervousness. People who tend to be in the future a lot, they can have extra dry skin. They can have brittle hair. Their hair can kind of fall out. Those are kind of extreme cases. Panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Trouble sleeping, that's a big one for people who have energy in the future. And so just simply reminding yourself of where you are now in this present moment, calling your spirit back to be here with you now is a really valuable tool. One of the other things that can quite trigger us is being around children. As adults, it's like you're around a 3-year-old, you are highly likely to have your old memories get triggered of when you were 3 years old and you don't even know that this is happening. And then you feel off for days afterwards. And so just reminding yourself when you're around children, whatever the age, or maybe your own children are going to school and they're entering into the 3rd grade, you might have memories that get triggered from 3rd grade. And so, yeah, your energy can shift out of the present moment. So just in this few minutes of talking, I'm hoping that I am leaving you with the impression that you might have to remind yourself several times a day. If you're feeling off, the first thing that you can do is reminding yourself of how old you are and what today's date is. So, let's see. One of the practices that I like to have my students do is to just check in. So take a moment now, close your eyes, and ask yourself, what is today's date and how old am I? And do it really quickly and go with the first date and the first age that you get. And if it's anything other than the date that you are listening to this and watching this video, then remind yourself of what the current date is. And if your age is from the past or in the future and it's not your current age, then remind yourself of what your age is now. Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to leave you with I'm going to share one more story before I finish up this video. And then I will be creating another video where we'll go through each and every chakra, present timing, present aging your chakras. But this story that I wanted to share was one of my family went to Chicago to go to my sister's graduation because she attended the Chicago Art Institute to get her degree in art administration. So she was graduating, so my whole family flew out to Chicago to attend this. And at the museum there, they had an offering of the Titanic. So they had displays of the Titanic and the dishes and furniture and clothing and stories. So you could kind of go through each room. Once you bought your ticket, you would go to the first room and you were handed a boarding pass as if you were a passenger that was going to get on the Titanic. And so it was given the name, a passenger name, and so you were going to pretend like you were this passenger throughout all the different rooms of the Titanic display. You wouldn't find out if your as the passenger if you lived or died when the Titanic sunk. And so it was kind of fun. We went through all the different installations, reading about it, holding our little ticket in hand as we went from room to room to room. What I remember about that was my passenger had survived, me as the passenger, but my mother's passenger ticket that she had not survived. So here it was now, we're going to kind of fast forward. About 3 months later, my mother was feeling off, and she'd felt off, but enough to function. But now about 3 months later, she was really feeling off. She wasn't feeling like herself, she said. And, she may have had some illnesses or whatever, but she was just feeling off. So several healers got together to offer her a healing. And she just kept describing she was cold, and she kept describing she was icy cold, although her temperature was normal. Well, you can imagine, just based on this video, what the outcome of this story is going to be, because we had forgotten that we went to Chicago and we went to see the Titanic display. I mean, who would think that something about seeing this Titanic display would affect and impact our energy field? And so my mother kept saying she was cold, but then one of the healers said, there's this icy cold water. I can feel this water. I mean, my mother was literally shaking. Her teeth were chattering, and the room was quite warm that we were in. Well, as it turns out, not only was she out of present time, so she was at the date that the Titanic sunk, but she was out of present age. She took on the age of the actual individual whose ticket she held, and it was almost like she could feel that drowning process of being in that icy cold water. And remember, her ticket is one of the ones that didn't survive. And so just in that little story, all of us are influenced by energy in that way quite a bit, but we don't know it. I mean, the more grounded you can get and the more hands-on being in the present moment that you are, you can kind of slough off some of those experiences, but some of them can kind of grab hold and they can actually make you physically ill. So remember to go to the meditation right after this, follow through the meditation, and just see where your chakras are. Are they in the present moment? Are they at the current age that you are at? And if not, we'll go through the guided meditation to help you bring them all current. So thank you all again for tuning in this week with this teaching on the power of being in the present moment and present age. I do these teachings every single week, so if you'd like to see more of these videos, just click the little bell below to get notification and click subscribe so that you can be a part of the page and get notifications when those come up. Also, I'm on Facebook Live every Thursday here in the Pacific Northwest at 7 a.m. So you may need to adjust your own timing to match with our timing here on the West Coast of the United States. And just kind of listen into the live teachings. And then we have online courses and things like that, videos, meditations that you can download. So thanks again, everyone, for listening in. And please share this technique with everyone that you know. It will be of great benefit. Thanks.